Welcome back. 5 years after the end of World War II, Americans were called to service yet again. This time, it was far across the Pacific in Korea. Joining us to introduce one of the great heroes of the Korean War, please welcome recording artist, actress, and television host, Kellie Pickler.
Thank y'all so much for coming together tonight and being a part of something that matters, right? All right. Dawn, Sunday, June 25th, 1950, backed by artillery, North Korean forces stormed across the 38th parallel. Soon after, American troops arrived to defend their South Korean allies. The Korean War had begun. Outnumbered and unprepared, the American forces were driven south to the brink of defeat. And yet, displaying uncommon courage, they rallied, pushed north, and secured the freedom of the South. It came at a cost. 92,000 Americans were wounded in Korea. 36,000 were killed. There's a sacrifice worth remembering and worth honoring. With the story of one of the great heroes of the Korean War is Laurence Fishburne.
Outside Las Vegas, May 1949. Teams of elite fighter pilots from the newly formed U.S. Air Force gathered for the inaugural Continental Gunnery Meet, known today as the Red Flag and remembered by history as the first Top Gun. They were the best of the best, testing their flying and weapon skills. Among the pilots was a team from the 332nd Fighter Group, the famed Tuskegee Airmen, the first African-American pilots in U.S. military history who had amassed an extraordinary record in the Second World War. Representing the 332nd was Reserve Pilot First Lieutenant Halbert Alexander, along with lead pilots First Lieutenant Harry Stewart, Captain Alva Temple, and 25-year-old First Lieutenant James H. Harvey III. Before the meet, the men were pulled aside by their commander, Benjamin O. Davis, who would gain fame as the first African-American general in the Air Force. "If you don't win, don't come back," he told them, only half joking. By the end, the Tuskegee team stood at the top of the standings, winning the title of history's first Top Guns. Growing up, James Harvey was inspired to become a pilot after watching Army P-40s flying overhead. At the outbreak of World War II, the former high school class president and valedictorian requested enlistment in the Army Air Corps. Despite the need for men, he was rejected. He didn't need to ask why. In March 1943, Harvey was drafted into the Army. Still determined to fly, he applied for cadet training with the new unit of black pilots training at Tuskegee, Alabama. The Tuskegee Airmen had been gaining attention for the intensity of their training and their drive to prove themselves as pilots. The training paid off. In nearly 1,600 combat missions, the Tuskegee Airmen compiled an outstanding record, earning 3 Distinguished Unit Citations, a Silver Star, 8 Purple Hearts, and 96 Distinguished Flying Crosses. After graduating from Tuskegee and completing flight training in April 1945, Lieutenant Harvey prepared to ship out to join his comrades in Italy. But before he could, Germany surrendered, ending the war in Europe. "Hitler knew I was coming," he would later joke. Though his World War II story had ended early, James Harvey's military story would continue on. Months after winning the first Top Gun, he prepared to deploy to a cold mountainous peninsula halfway around the world. October 16, 1950, north of the South Korean capital of Seoul. Now a combat pilot, Lieutenant Harvey was leading a group of F-80 jet fighters back from a bombing mission in the north when they received a distress call. American soldiers were pinned down by several thousand enemy troops and needed immediate support. Banking toward the fight, Harvey's fighters sped toward their target. Locating the enemy position, Lieutenant Harvey attacked, inflicting heavy damage and relieving the beleaguered Americans. James H. Harvey III was awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross for his actions that day. and would go on to fly 126 combat missions. He was the first African-American jet pilot to fly missions during the Korean War, all less than 8 years after he had been rejected for service with the Army Air Corps. It was a fitting vindication for the Tuskegee Top Gun, who proved himself not merely a good pilot, but one of history's best.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Tuskegee Top Gun Lieutenant Colonel James H. Harvey III.
Well, I would like to welcome, as the man said earlier, one of history's best, Lieutenant Colonel James H. Harvey III. Sir, you are a Tuskegee Airman. You are the winner of the first Top Gun ever. Korean War fighter pilot. There is a lot that you have done in this life which you can be proud of. Of all your accomplishments, which would you say that you're the most proud of?
Well, I could lump two of them together. Being a Tuskegee Airman and going on to win the first Top Gun weapons meet at Las Vegas. 332nd, that was us. We submitted a team to compete, and we won the meet.
Amazing. Sir, what would you like to say on behalf of your comrades from the legendary Tuskegee Airmen?
We weren't supposed to have the mentality to fly aircraft or operate heavy machinery. We were inferior to the white man, and we were nothing. But we proved them wrong. Definitely proved them wrong.
Yes, you did. Yes, sir. What would you like for Americans to remember about the men who fought in Korea?
The fighting men in Korea, it was a police action. And they did their best with the weapons they had. And like any war, there are two things you do: kill or be killed. And those that came home should be proud of what they did. And my hat is off to all the Korean veterans. You did a great job.
Ladies and gentlemen, once again, Lieutenant Colonel James H. Harvey III.
American Airlines salutes the Tuskegee Top Gun, Lieutenant Colonel James Harvey III.